Welcome to the show. Hi, I'm Randy Jeffers, and we are live from the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Well, we have a very special guest, Rachel Richardson, right, from TrueID.com. You are not going to want to miss this show. This is a story that is unbelievable, and I can't wait to hear your part of this story. And I know it's a much bigger story than just you, but let's start with a little commercial, if we will, because you have a very special fundraising run coming up, right?
Yes, we do.
And let's just give out that information. It's going to be, and you want to write this down if you have a pencil. It's Saturday, May 13th. Is that right?
Yep.
May 13th, and it's going to start at 8 o'clock in the morning, and that's at the Equestrian Park in Henderson. So, and that's the address is 1298 Equestrian Drive, Henderson, Nevada, 89051. So, if you're anywhere in the Las Vegas area, anywhere close, or if you're coming in for the weekend, you do not want to miss this, because you're going to have a chance to raise some money for a cause that is just absolutely amazing. So, let's start with just telling us a little bit about what is TrueID.
TrueID is actually an organization that mentors at-risk youth and also women in the adult industry. So I love the program because it offers what no other program really in our community does, and that is a friend. You know, we become friend to the women and we befriend them right where they are. So we are a faith-based organization, but we don't go in to the brothels or to the strip clubs or anywhere else, laying hands and casting out demons. And, we become friends with these women and literally just walk them through the process of life, And ultimately, when God pulls them out of the industry, it's a permanent thing, as opposed to when man does. And, the temptation to go back is always there.
So just so we're real clear, now we're talking about women that are in the sex industry. These are prostitutes of various forms, from people that work on the street all the way up to probably high caliber, highly paid girls that are in the big fancy casinos. It's also anybody that's at risk, and it's expanded out because a lot of these women have children, and they have other family members that suffer because of the lifestyle that they have, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it encompasses all of that, is that right?
Yes, we do. We work with other community organizations in order to provide wraparound services for whatever the women may need, from healthcare to homes. So so that we have host families who are able to keep the women after they complete, let's say, a victory outreach type program, where they go through the women's home for about a year or so, and then they need to be integrated back into society. And but they still need the accountability of somebody who is, number one, God-fearing, and number two, who's going to hold them to the standards that they learned while they were in the home. So it's a program that just doesn't leave no gaps, in the excuse eliminating program.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about you first, and I want to hear more about about TrueID and all the various programs and so forth, because you're the program director for the organization, right?
Yes.
And I'm sure you have a lot of programs, but what made you get involved in this organization? What made you become aware of it, and how did you get involved?
Well, the original thing that got me involved is because I'm a community liaison, so I do a lot with the mayor's faith-based initiatives, connecting the state with the churches, a lot with the Metro's gang unit, and I work a lot with youth. And what originally got me involved is the fact that, being a faith-based organization, they are not saying, okay, well, in order to be part of this organization, you have to leave that industry, you have to leave that brothel, you have to leave that strip club, they're not saying that. They're literally loving on the women right there where they are, and it's the love of God that compels people to change. And so that's what I've seen over the last four and a half years is genuine change, and women who are rising up and owning businesses and getting their children back, and God's really restoring their lives and their families, and it's permanent. It's not I attend a church called Victory Outreach, and so you see a lot of women who come and go, and they want to quit, and they want to, but they just, you see a lot of women who come and go, and this has been something I've been able to really see, again, just transformation, like, wholeheartedly. So it's been amazing.
I'll bet, yeah. Well, this is an interesting city, Las Vegas. I'm told that there are more churches per capita in Las Vegas than any other major city in the country. Now that's pretty interesting. And then you also have the other side of it, because you have in many places in Nevada prostitution that's legal. There's many brothels and so forth. and I believe that on the Strip it's actually not legal, but there's sure plenty of it, I'm sure. So you have this interesting dichotomy. You have a couple different things going on. And the lure of the money is probably a huge thing for people that get themselves in a bind, because it can be a lot, right?
Oh yes, it can be a lot, and I think here, we have one of the highest dropout rates also, and so what we're finding is a lot of young people are dropping out of school saying, I'll valet park cars, I'll work at the club, I'll make $100,000 a year, and rightfully so, because they have that ability to do that, unfortunately, here in Vegas. So you're absolutely right.
So tell us your story, Rachel. You mentioned to me before we started the show that nothing was off limits, that you're an open book, and you didn't mind talking about your story. So tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, my story begins, I'm a Nevada native, and so I have grandparents who birthed this city, literally. I mean, my great-great-grandmother was the first white baby born here, and I'm mixed. I'm black and I'm white. And my grandfather, Lou Kimmin, he was the original enforcement division for the Gaming Commission.
Wow.
And so when he was working in Lake Tahoe, they bombed his car. So there's a lot of family history and dynamic. I was a black baby though, and so my grandmother, Margaret Hinman, she, just the prestige and it just wasn't okay to have a black baby in the 70s, a grandchild or not. And unfortunately, because of that, I was very distant from them. However, the streets accepted me. They didn't care if I was black or white or not. My mother was a drug addict at one time, and my father was not around. And the streets became my family. And I was involved in gangs, and also I have a 19-year-old son, and his father has done federal time for pimping and pandering.
Wow.
So I definitely understand things from the perspective. People call them victims, victors. I get it. I've been knee deep in the hole per se, and there's just nothing flashy behind door number 3 once it's revealed. But the problem is allowing for these young people to feel my pain, that they don't even, door number 3 doesn't entice them anymore. So I've had the privilege of doing a lot, again, with Metro and different, organizations to be able to bring awareness to kids, primarily youth, young people, because, it looks really good, but it's not. So
at what age were you when you got involved in the adult industry?
Well, actually, when I was younger, I'll say that I was molested from the age of 6 to 9, and I was raped at 13. So sex meant nothing. And if I could be paid to do something that meant nothing, why not? And that was, again, I got pregnant at 15 by a gang member and a dope dealer. And, prostitution has a lot to do with gangs also, because, you can sell a drug once. You can sell a girl over and over. So I officially got into it, if I may, when I was 18. I was working at Wet n Wild during the day as a deep lifeguard, and Cheetahs at night. And Cheetahs won.
Cheetahs is an adult...
yes, it's a strip club.
Strip club, okay.
Yes. So being that I could make a lot more money in such a little amount of time, I had a daughter at the time, it was, that's what drew it. And that, for me, that's what drew the line. I didn't graduate, so I didn't have an education. I didn't have any type of work experience. Again, the streets raised me and raised me.
It's probably hard for some of the people that are watching right now, and for a lot of us, to really understand why somebody or how somebody gets involved in that industry. But, when you think about the money and I mean, we're in Las Vegas, and I assume it's probably almost any city really, but not like here. This is really a different place, right? Because it's so readily available and the opportunities are there. But walk us through that process, because I know that people are watching that have children that they don't want them going down that road, and maybe there's something you can say that could prevent some of that.
I think the first step, again, I have 5 children of my own, and the first step as a parent is to make sure, they're friends. Tell me who you hang around with, I'll tell you who you are. So if you have kids that are hanging out with people who smoke weed, your kid's smoking weed. Let's just be honest. You know what I mean? This is not, I just hang out with them. No, you're doing it.
Right.
And so I'm very much like that with my own children. We do not have closet doors in my house. I shake down beds like the police do. Like I'm very involved in their education, and just we have to be hands-on with our kids, because if we don't want to raise them, the streets will. There's a pimp that's waiting to raise them, there's a drug dealer that's waiting to raise them. And I was in a meeting this morning, because obviously here in Vegas we just had a 3-week-old child that was shot and killed. there's no respect anymore, not for parents, not for teachers, not for the law. And, we have to be parents that see something, say something. I have a 6-year-old who's gotten out of hand, believe it or not. And I have not been afraid to take him down to juvenile justice and to have one of those guards come out and let him know that this is where you'll end up. Because, hitting your 2-year-old sister right now might just be, sibling rivalry. But if you hit her when you're 16, because you're 6 right now, that's assault. And and so I'm very much, I make sure that kids know that. And as a parent, if you can't control them, you need to find who can. And, don't let it go any further than, a day. Because once they begin to feel that control and that power, they suck that up and they try to, they take it to the nth degree, and then you're in real trouble. So that's the first thing. We got to be parents first, in order to save our generation. We got.
Well, I see your shirt says chaplain on it, and so I'm sure you're a little bit social worker, a little bit chaplain, a little bit preacher, a little bit of everything, right?
Yeah, I'm really grateful. I'm just somebody who's lived through a lot by God's grace, and I'm very grateful, so I do a little bit of everything. I always tell, the youth I work with happen to be ex-gang members and such, and they always say, well, Miss Rachel, you may not have a PhD, but you have a master's in the streets. And so they're the ones that I really need to be able to relate to, because those are the lives that I, in particular, am trying to change. So I do a little bit of everything.
I'll bet, yeah.
But ultimately, it's done in love, which is really the key to it being any type of impact.
So the good news is that for those of us that maybe have a family member or even a child, in some cases that we haven't heard from, or that is on the streets or is just in trouble in one way or another, the good news is that there's hope, right?
Absolutely. If they're not dead, it's not over.
Yeah.
Don't stop fighting until they are, and that's that.
And so that's True ID, because True ID is here to offer hope and the solution, some of the solutions and ways to get out of that lifestyle and change their life around.
Yes, and really a friend to walk with you through it, because a lot of times you realize you're getting older, you won't be in the club forever. I mean, you start thinking about things. You start thinking about your daughter, who you never want to enter the industry. You definitely start thinking about your son, who you can't raise to be a man. So you're with different men, hoping to find a father for him, and when you've been through some things, you understand the mentality of the women in it.
Yeah.
And so it's not judgmental at all. It's able to say, I know where you are. And you now have a 12-year-old son who is growing into a man that you can't, and you don't want him to do life for pimping. You don't, you start thinking about those things as a parent. And if you're not a parent, as a woman, you begin to think about those things. Like, I want to have kids one day. I want to have a career that I can tell my child about. And, once you start thinking about those things, if you have a friend that you can call who's not from the club or from that atmosphere, who's, going to really be there, to give you the resources or the ability. There's programs that offer vocational training and, things that most people have no idea about, especially people in this type of industry, because, again, money just buys everything for them. But, when you have that resource for them, it definitely provides hope, man. They're like, I didn't even know. So it's amazing.
Well, speaking of money, it takes money to run these programs, and sometimes a lot of money, because without money you really can't help a lot of people, right?
Yes.
And I know if you're out there and you're thinking, how can I help? What can I do? Because I recognize there's a need, and I just want to be a part of that. Well, you can send money. You can donate money, right? And how would they donate money to True ID?
We have a website, and it's mytrueid.org. They can go on there and
Let's
donate.
say that one more time, so make sure you get it right, because it's not True ID, it's my, you have to put the my in front of it, mytrueid.org, not .com, .org.
Nope, yes.
All right, okay, got it.
So mytrueid.org. And there is a donate. You can donate and also see more about the ministry and what they do, or what we do, and you can donate on there if you'd like. And we're going to have a fun run. The fun run is also to build awareness, so that we have the ability to let other people know that there are other great organizations that are fighting human trafficking, or working with high-risk individuals in this industry as well. So there'll be vendor booths, and people will be able to be, because a lot of people think it'll never happen in your neighborhood.
Right.
But we can turn the TV on every day and see that it's happening. It's happening in Aliante, it's happening in Henderson, Green Valley, and the really predominant areas of town. And a lot of times you live right next door to these ladies, because they're making a lot of money. So they're not, always living in, cardboard boxes. They're living in extravagant homes.
Yeah.
And, we've had a couple rings that have been busted out here in amazing houses. in amazing parts of town. And, the neighbors, when interviewed, are kind of like, well, I thought maybe because there was a lot of traffic
Yeah.
and, but just to be able to raise that awareness as well.
So none of us are immune. Now, I understand that if someone donates money, that all the money goes to the cause.
Yes, absolutely. It goes to all the services
It's
for the
not
women.
like a lot of these charities. I won't mention some of the big names, but I was looking recently at one of the really large ones that people are very happy to contribute money to, and 60%. 60% of every 60 cents out of every dollar was going to admin costs and marketing costs. I mean, and some of them are probably even worse than that. Where very little of what you give goes to whatever it's supposed to be doing. But in True ID's case, it's 100%, right?
100%, yes. We don't have any overhead. We have no offices. We have no staff. Everybody volunteers, and it's out of passion. It's not, nobody's arms are broken, but it's out of passion. So 100% goes to service our victims and really just bring healing, hope, like you said. So yes, 100%.
So since you mentioned volunteers, I would imagine besides money that you need volunteers as well. And is there room for more people?
Absolutely, there always is. And a lot of people say, well, I don't have this background. It means more to women who do have the background that somebody who had the ideal life, as we would like to say, the white picket fence and dog named Spot and a husband and all the things that a lot of these women only dream about having, that you were willing to set that aside to come into my territory, into where I am, to just love me. That means so much to them. And so, it's not, I don't really have anything to offer, because just your time is invaluable. So please, if you may know a craft, you might know a trade, maybe you can sew or embroider, I don't know, but whatever gifts you have or abilities you have, yes, please, we're always looking for people who are passionate about it and don't mind sharing, so that we can train even our at-risk girls up. Nobody knows how to sew anymore, so
right.
Those kind of just little things. Cook, these are mothers, these are wives, these are women who will be if they're not now, and they need to know how to cook. They need to know budgeting. They need to know finance. So please, any kind of little gifting that you might have, we definitely need it. And we're looking for mentors. People who are just willing to spend time with these women, and it's once a month. We don't ask, you may spend more. I have somebody I spend a lot of time with, but we do ask once a month, because we are asking for a commitment for at least a year, and that's just to walk this, this young lady or this woman through transition. I have a mentee who's gone from everything from coming out of the club to domestic violence to, literally having to tell her where to go get a restraining order, and, but just being able to walk with her through times that, she may have backslid, she may have went back to drugs or alcohol, but she didn't have to do that because she had a friend who just loved on her. And now she's been able to, get her son back, and now she's a grandmother, she has a granddaughter, and, just life. And I've been able to live that life with her, and it's been amazing. So, amazing.
So your best success story, I'm sure you've had a lot of success stories, but tell us about your very best one, your favorite story.
If I'm honest, I say my favorite story is my own daughter, because when you're helping the public, you forget.
Yeah.
You forget your own kids. My daughter, she'll be 24 in May, and for the first 9-10 years of her life, I wasn't. I was a drug addict. I was a harlot. I did a lot of things that I shouldn't have, and she ended up being a mother to my young son. Here she is. He's 2, and but she's making bottles and changing him and waking up, and her mother's not around. And I gave my life to the Lord about 17 years ago, and I got her when she was about 8, 9, and she really had a chip on her shoulder. But I thank God for one of the women at the church who said, that's your fault. You created that monster. Because she would say things like, oh, now you want to be a mom, like you're really going to come around, and things that were very hurtful. And she didn't understand addiction or anything that I went through in the streets, and why I let her stay with families so she wouldn't have to experience it. And I want to say, well, I'm the mom, I'm grown, you don't talk to me like that. But I thank God for, for a friend who was able to say, no, No, you have to prove her wrong by your actions. And in doing that, this is a young lady whose father's been locked up her whole life in prison. He's right now locked up for murder. He was a gang member, and so she didn't have that. I've been married to my husband almost 13 years. However, she was one who was student body president, honor roll, just had very high achievements according to, the world standard, and didn't really serve God. We went to church, but she was not. She was like, whatever, that's your thing. But when she did, when she was 18 years old, we began to see her drift. She started getting a tattoo. She got a tattoo, was hanging out with the wrong crowd. We just saw, and we ended up dropping her off at like a teen challenge type facility in Los Angeles. And God got a hold of her life. And she's been to, South Africa and even Africa. And she now works with other young girls who are church kids who may have gotten pregnant or, missed it out of wedlock. And she just loves on them. And I've just seen her grow, to be this young woman that I'm confident because God did it in her life, He'll do it in anybody's life.
Yeah.
And again, when you're helping other people, your home gets neglected sometimes, and not on purpose. You just think, you don't know what these people go through. You got a silver spoon in your mouth, and you're ungrateful, you're disrespectful. But I've just got to see, God do a work in her life that I couldn't even do. So it's been amazing. So
Yeah.
But that would be the best success story.
It's a great success.
It
Amazing
is.
success. Yeah, I think it talks about it in the Bible. If you don't take care of your own kids, that's really the number one priority, right?
It's supposed to be, and sometimes we forget. And I think we think, well, I didn't do such a good job with that. Maybe if I could help somebody else's kid, then I've achieved something. I know in my mind that's kind of how it was. And and I think what I really saw is, even if I'm not like hands-on with my kids and not, God's still going to use them and use them in such a way that they then come back and say, thank you. Thank you for the standard. Thank you for not letting me go out. Thank you for making me keep curfew. I mean, with my daughter, I literally closed down, teenage clubs. I'm like, I'm coming in or the police are coming, So, but because I knew she didn't want that life. And so.
You're a toughie.
I am.
Well, Rachel, walk us through, because this is a different subject, and it's one that doesn't get talked about very often. And I've never been to a gentleman's club, so I don't have any idea what goes on there. I can imagine, but walk us through what these girls that work in these places, and how do they feel? What goes through their minds, do you think?
I don't think they feel, really, to be honest. There's a lot of alcohol and drugs that go on in the club, and there's a lot of numbing, and there's not really a feeling, to be honest. You kind of walk around dead. We're dead women walking in there. We're almost zombies at some times, and we're just there to make some money, and if you look interested, we're interested. But there's no, if I say the way they feel, I just don't, there's not. It's just really about the money.
Strictly money driven.
Yes. Absolutely.
So what's the key then what's the hook? What, how do you get someone's attention that's in that lifestyle? Do they have to get to the bottom first?
I don't think so with this particular lifestyle, because that's more like of an addiction. I think with this lifestyle, they need to know that you may have stopped dreaming young. A lot of women in the sex industry have been molested, raped, literally just taken advantage of in such ways, even by father figures and different people they're supposed to trust, pastors, people that they should have been able to trust. And so that trust is totally out the window. So the first and foremost, you need to build a relationship. Like, they need to be able to trust you and trust that what you're saying, you know what you're saying. And when you've been through something like that, or you've lived to tell about it, they trust you. And then you model for them. You model life. That's what discipleship is. They see you with your husband. They see you with your children. I met my husband in church. We didn't even kiss till we were married. Now, somebody who went from being a harlot to, celibate, to saying, okay, God, if this is the one, I don't want to ruin it. My grandma would say, if he loves you, he'll wait. And I would say, Grandma, if I make him wait, he's going to leave, so, but she was right, again. And so being able to tell a woman that, you will meet a man who will love you for you. And they're like, yeah, right, but then they do. And then it's like, wow, but they trust you. They trust what you're saying. And once you get their trust, man, you can pour into them, and you can tell them, what are your dreams, what are your passions, and then you expound on that. You love to cook, or one thing I love to do is set them up e-commerce, so build Shopify stores, and then I help them literally go to antique malls and see what is, and go to Goodwill and say, oh wow, I remember seeing that lamp. I didn't know that was an amber lamp. And then just the mentality is growing. It's still the hustle mentality, because you're trying to make things happen, but it's in a different way.
Yeah.
And then they become like, antique connoisseurs. They're always looking for the bargain, looking for the deal, and it just, but again, that brings them hope too, because there is money to be made in things. They just don't always see
Absolutely.
it. So it's good to be able to do that.
So you're an entrepreneur at heart, huh?
Yes.
And you
yes.
want to teach everybody how to be that. Well, that's a great thing to do.
Well, you have to be able to combat the money somehow, and
Yeah.
making $8.50 an hour doesn't do it. Let's just be honest, And when you're somebody who may have children or bills, you don't even want to think about that. And really, that's a lot of time when you're in the club or you're in the escort services. That's what you're thinking about. Like, even if I got a real job, like, it wouldn't even pay my car note. But when you can show them something that you really determine how much money you're going to make, how much time do you want to put into it, and they have a sense of pride about it, they love it. I know one of the girls from True ID actually had an online shoe store. So she was able to start this online shoe store and excelled and just did amazing in it. And so, we were able to see her blossom, and they didn't know they could make good money without, selling their souls. And
Hey, you have a great model here in town. Zappos is right here. And
Yes.
They make a lot of money with an online shoe store.
that they do.
They
So
own half of I think they own most of downtown now.
yeah, he's working on it, that's for sure. So
Absolutely. So, walk us through the process of a volunteer. If somebody is interested and wants to be a part of True ID, what happens?
well, actually, when you go to the website, there is a tab to be able to click on to be a volunteer, and you can upload your information for your background check, and you can upload the information for the actual application. Obviously, everybody's well vetted. We don't want the girls to be taken advantage of within a ministry either. So,
course, yeah.
we have to make sure that we, dot all of our I's and cross our T's, but everything's right there online. And then, again, even if you're just interested, I know that in May, we will be having some community trainings, and they will encompass a lot of community organizations. I know the Rape Crisis Center is going to be doing a sexual abuse training, which takes a 6-year-old should not have to tell us that they're being touched.
Right.
We as a community should be able to look at a 6-year-old and see some determining factors that something just doesn't look right within her. And that's a great training that the Rape Crisis Center has. The New Hope Foundation is going to be coming, and they're going to be dealing, with trauma and different, so there's going to be different community organizations to train us as the community on things we can look for, and signs and symptoms that we can look for as parents and also as teachers, or just humans, because at some point we have to stop looking past these children and we have to look at them, and we can't blame it on booty shorts and little tops that no, something is going on. Not only are her parents allowing her to dress like this, but she shouldn't even have this desire if something isn't taking place. And so when we become more alert, it literally saves children. And so that's what these community trainings in May will be on, and that will also be on the True ID website. But as a volunteer, even if you don't fill out the paperwork right away, to be able to come to something like that and just kind of, because it can be overwhelming, to be honest, especially if you're like, well, I just want to help people. These, it's not as easy as we would like it to be, but it's
Absolutely.
definitely rewarding. It's definitely rewarding. So it's well worth it.
Well, I think for those living in Las Vegas, maybe the first step is this. So
Right.
I did it the first time. How about you do it now and tell us about this fundraiser that's coming up?
Awesome. Well, we are having the True ID fundraiser, and it is a 5K, a 10K, a 5K, or a 1 mile walk. So it's open for everybody. If you want to bring your pets, your kids, strollers, anything. And that's going to be Saturday, May 13th. And it's going to start at 8 a.m. at the Equestrian Park. I always get that wrong. So the Equestrian Park at 1298 Equestrian Drive in Henderson, 89051, and that's in Nevada. So Henderson, if you're listening outside of Las Vegas, it's right next door.
It's all one
So
town.
yeah. It's just the and the funds, 100% of the funds are actually going to go towards supporting the mentees of True ID and anything that they may need. So, some of them need IDs, some may need a birth certificate, some might need a bus ticket to go back home. Once this woman comes out of the industry and begins to make communication with her family again, I want to go home now, you know what I mean? And we want to be able to provide that for her. And so 100% of all proceeds are going to go to our True ID mentees. I can't stand calling them victims, because it just, but they're human trafficking victims. I guess that's kind of like the buzzword that's going around right now.
Yeah.
But we deal with a lot of women who aren't forcefully trafficked like that a lot. But the money is definitely the key. So, but 100% of the proceeds go towards that. And you can register yourself or your team you can go to www.active, / Henderson, Nevada. Or you can also go to the mytrueid.org, and there's a link there as well to be able to register. So.
Fabulous. Well, we'll look forward to that, and that's going to be a great event, and hopefully we'll get a lot of volunteers. That may be the first place to start, right? So if you want to be a volunteer, come out to the Equestrian Park, and even if you don't run or walk, you can get the chance to meet people and see what's going on.
Absolutely, and you'll meet some of the women too, because I think as a community we have an idea of what, maybe, that girl should look like, but they look like us, you know what I mean? They're not all walking around in G-strings and bras, you know what I mean? These are women. They're daughters of the king. These are our neighbors.
Yeah.
These are
Our
our
friends,
neighbors.
our family.
Absolutely they are, man. And ultimately they could be our kids if something doesn't begin to change. And we really need to have that eye for them like that, because we want to say, well, it could never happen. It can happen, and it does happen all day, every day. We live in Vegas. And so come on out, meet some of the women,
Absolutely.
Hear some of their stories, hear some of our stories, the ones that have been with True ID for some time, and just, because once you meet somebody with the passion of it's contagious. You just, you want to help, you want to do something. And so,
well, Rachel, if we want to help, let me ask you a question. Obviously, you've been involved in the industry and you know how it works, and so when you're mentoring someone from the industry, you sort of know how they trust you, right? But is it necessary? I mean, can somebody who has not been a part of that industry or just has led just a regular kind of a life and has not been exposed to those things, can they volunteer as well?
Absolutely. And it means so much more, because I'll go back to help kind of what was left behind in my life, kind of to fix what was broken, and how I think that if this would have happened before I could. But you know what? Somebody who puts, again, aside their ideal life that we crave in the industry to come and help me or reach me or just speak to me or, bring me a birthday, bath and body basket, that means so much more, because you are telling these women that I love you. Right? I love you. And a lot of them have not had that from their parents, from, their babies' fathers or fiancés or pimps, or they had, but you're saying this is a healthy love. This is how you should be loved on. You deserve this. You're worthy. You're beautiful. And it means so much more, because you could be at home with your picket fence and your dog named Spot and your husband watching a show, and you're here with me. So please, please get involved, because that means so much more, to be honest. I can go in there with my story all day, but when, the housewife comes in there or the business owner comes in there, it really means more, because you're saying, you matter. You matter more than that, and that does something to somebody, man. That just sparks something in your heart. So yeah, the ordinary person is more than welcome to be involved.
Well, so if you're an ordinary person, come on out, okay? And that date is again when?
On May 13th.
May 13th on a Saturday morning, 8 o'clock, and get a chance to meet some of these ladies, and maybe your life will get changed around in ways that you could never have imagined.
Yes, and I work with youth, and that's one thing I always tell the young people. They're like, I don't do half as much for you as you do for me. They allow me to heal through so much, and a lot of people who are living an ordinary life, they've been through extraordinary things that they don't want to talk about now. You have these housewives and business owners who have been raped or molested, who just don't want to talk about that. But when you meet a girl who now is trapped because of this, it frees you also, because you begin to tell her your story, and then you tell her how God mended it, or and just being able to speak about that. Your pain now has a purpose, and that means something too, because it heals you from the inside out. And so even when you thought your life was ordinary, and you're fine now, right? I'm fine now. That was then. This is now. It's never over. And when you can share that pain and understand that it has a purpose, that too just does something to you. So,
Rachel, there's different classes of people that get involved in the adult industry, right? I mean, we, here in Vegas we have gentlemen's clubs, and you mentioned that some of them make just crazy amounts of money. And then you have people that probably just work in the hotels or whatever they do, however they do that. But you also have people that really are sex slaves. And I know that up in Portland, Oregon. I understand Oregon is one of the places that is on the either number one or number two every year on the FBI list of young girls getting kidnapped and forced into the sex slave trade. And they get these girls from malls and from food courts, and they'll have guys in there to befriend these girls and get to know them. And next thing they know, they're being drugged up, and then they take them from city to city. There's a whole I know the I-5 corridor is from city to city to city, and at some point they probably all end up in Las Vegas, I would imagine. And so you have those, and that's a whole different thing, isn't it? Because they're not doing that for money. They're not doing that by choice or anything else. They're forced to do that. Have you had any experience with that at all?
I have. The younger girls actually, even at juvenile hall, they've been arrested now for trafficking. But I've had quite a bit of experience with that. And I think the one common denominator that I have found has been they were already having problems at home. And so, they ran away. Several of my girls were foster kids that nobody reported missing.
Wow.
Because they didn't want the check to stop. So if I report you missing, then I'm not going to get your money. And so these are girls, and I'll never forget. One of my babies said, "Miss Rachel, I'm not going to, nobody's going to put me on the back of a milk carton. Nobody's looking for me." And when you have a kid who knows that and verbalizes that to the point that it's very articulate, you understand the problem is much bigger than us. It is. And number one, we need God. And number two, we need the love of God to compel us to go to the highways and byways, because these are kids who again, were struggling at home most of the time, and they just thought, okay, I'm going to be free from these rules and this, that. And now they can't call their parents, right? 'Cause they're afraid. They've been threatened. I know where you live. I know where your parents live. I'll kill your brother. And there's fear. There's a lot of fear in that. And these people are pretty powerful that, if they can take you from state to state, they've put on a front that they are extremely powerful.
Yeah.
And again, that's where the community comes in. We see these women head down, no eye contact, who you just think something might be wrong. Even if we're wrong in reporting, so what? Because if you're right, you've saved a life. A lot of times we just don't want to be involved. We just want to run to Walmart real quick and leave. No, there's things, there's people, we see them, we see young people, we see kids that it just doesn't look right. Something in our gut, we feel it, like something just isn't right there. And again, we would rather be wrong than just be, incoherent.
So, Rachel, walk us through that process. So let's say we see somebody like that won't look you in the eye and looks down, and how do we report that? What do we do?
311.
311?
Yes.
Okay.
So 311 is the non-emergency, 911 number.
Okay.
And you let 311 know I'm at Walmart and this is what I saw, and if this may be a child they've been looking for. They may ask you to take a picture on your phone and send it. They might, but 311 that's the hotline, if I may, for something that you see that just doesn't look right. And it may be anything from from seeing a woman who just looks out of place, a child who looks out of place, to a briefcase that looks out of place. Just something doesn't feel right about the situation. So 311 is the number to have on speed dial.
Well, that is great, fabulous information. Yeah, absolutely. Anything else that we should know about that? I mean, a lot of people are sort of afraid to interfere in other people's lives, or they're afraid that if somebody sees them doing that, and they'll come and retaliate. There's all kinds of fears that people have, but 311, you can sneak around the corner and do that, I guess.
Right, and you can be anonymous. You're completely anonymous. So I know that I deal with a huge Hispanic population too, who's like, well, we can't be deported because that's not what Metro's here to do. That's not what our police department, that has nothing to do with that. You're completely anonymous. That doesn't, which gives us a way, to be honest, to be protected, because I would hate to think that I'm helping a girl, but I'm, possibly killing my own kid, so, and that's what these terrorists, like these gang members and these pimps, that's what they want us to believe. They want to put fear in the community as well.
Yeah.
But somebody has to be a fighter, and if they're the only ones fighting, they win. So at some point, we as a community, as the village, we've got to fight back. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is to educate ourselves, number one, because this could end up being our kids. A lot of times we just think that, that's them, not me. But it could be because these, they're, and a lot of times they have other females recruiting these females from the mall and from school and from, they're not, a lot of people think pimps are, they got the hats on with the big feather and the goldfish shoes
Like
and the
the
cane.
movies.
Yeah, but they're not. They're your average young man with jeans and a white shirt and, Air Jordans on. And we need to educate ourselves, and we need to educate our children because that's the only way that we're going to be able to safeguard, even at some level, our own homes, but our community as well, and we cannot be afraid. We can't be afraid of these people.
Well, I know we have people listening in, and some of them are saying, I really do want to help. Would you do me a favor and just look in the camera and look at these people and tell them, if you could, just describe a little bit of that hopelessness that some of these women and young girls feel, and that there is some hope.
Absolutely. And the hope comes in you. The hope comes by way of you seeing something and saying something. Because these are girls who had dreams at one time too. These are girls who wanted to be somebody. They wanted to be lawyers and doctors and nurses. They wanted to help people. And because nobody helped them, they then felt that this is how everybody was. But it only takes one person. And when we do help them, they dream again. And they want to turn around and help people also, because they understand what it feels like to be helped. But when you feel like nobody cares and you pass hundreds of people every day and nobody seems to even notice you or care about you, except for this person who unfortunately is abusing you at some, in some level, some way worse than others, then you're going to stay in that situation because at least that person, quote unquote, cares for you. So my plea, I beseech you, I just pray that you genuinely have a heart for your community, your village, because these are kids at our schools, these are kids that are our neighbors, and they're being abused. I know I was being molested from 6 to 9 years old. Nobody cared, I didn't feel like. And unfortunately, that's how I got into the industry, because if your stepdad can do it to you, then everybody else can too. But when you're in it, you think it's normal until you come out and somebody tells you this is not how it's supposed to be. So you have the ability, we have the ability to love these girls, to love these women in a way that they've never felt before. And at first it's very foreign, but once they recognize it, they then are able to give that to their own children. This is a generational thing. And we got to stop. The buck has to stop here. So please, if you see something, say something, call 311, ask them. If you have the ability and they're there standing alone, ask them, are you okay? They'll tell you no. Then what? Then you have to be able to call 311. You don't want to rescue them on your own because there are some dangerous players out there, so I don't want to say that, but I do want to say that you have the ability to help. So please do. Don't ignore their cries anymore. They need us, and we need them. They're our future. They're our future. These are the young people who will be, making our decisions for our laws and in our government and different things very, very soon. And if they think nobody cares, then they're not going to care either. So please, if you feel it, we know when we can feel it. We have that gut check. When you feel that, please don't ignore it.
Well, Rachel, thank you for that. You have come out of that industry and you've experienced that hopelessness, and I suspect in many ways you sort of hit rock bottom, right? In a lot of ways, and but you're now victorious. And what does that feeling feel like to know how your life was at one point and to now know what your life is like now?
It feels like it all matters. I was asked to be a co-author in this book recently, and my chapter was called From Molestation to Murder, It All Matters. Uh-huh. It all has a purpose. It all plays into the life I live now. And because I know it matters, then even when I go through pain today, it's like, this is going to matter soon. It's all going to work out for the good. So I'm willing to go through it because I know that it's going to be, an experience later for somebody else. I lived through it. I get, I'm done with it. But somebody else may feel like their hopelessness stops there and death is the only option. But because I lived to tell about it, they now have the hope to go on. So it's not for you anymore. It's for that next person. So it feels amazing.
And what does it feel like, real quickly, we're about out of time, but what does it feel like to have helped somebody else do what you've done? The first time you did that, what was it like?
Oh, that I used to be an addict too 17 years ago, and that's the best high. Oh, that's the best high. It's you understand that you literally, you get why the devil tried to kill you. You get why you should have died there, because you now know that, wow, this person now has a future and a hope for themselves, and it's genuine. And there's just no greater feeling than that, to be honest. None.
That's great. Well, Rachel Richardson, thank you so much for sharing your story, and thank you for being with us. Rachel Richardson, the program director for True ID, and we will see you on what date?
On May 13th.
May 13th at Equestrian Park in Henderson, right?
That's right.
And make sure you go to www.mytrueid.com. And
.org.
Or excuse me. Oh yeah, I messed it up.
That's
.org.
okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
And there'll be information there, I'm sure, as
Absolutely.
well. And click that little donate button down at the bottom, and for sure, though, come out to the Equestrian Park and get to meet some of these women and see how you can get involved, because I guarantee your life will change. Rachel,
Absolutely.
thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll see you next week. Bye bye, everybody.